Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for convening this important hearing today. My district is home to many Cuban Americans, some of whom have personal stories about fleeing this communist dictatorship and the dangers of this ongoing regime. Given Cuba's proximity to the U.S., the ongoing political environment and hostility, Cuba's alliance with many of our foreign adversaries, any engagement by our government with Cuban officials is of key concern to state and local elected officials and to Congress. And as we have been discussing here today, the Department of State identifies state sponsors of terrorism as countries that have, quote, repeatedly provided support for acts of international terrorism. End quote. Now, as you have discussed here today, Ms. Harvey, there are currently 4 countries listed as state sponsors of terrorism: Cuba, Iran, North Korea, and Syria. Has TSA ever conducted inspections of airports in Iran, North Korea, or Syria?
Not to my knowledge.
And has TSA, to your knowledge, hosted personnel from Iran, North Korea, or Syria at any of our U.S. airports?
No, ma'am.
Does TSA, to your knowledge, have any contact at all with official government leaders from Iran, North Korea, or Syria?
No.
So it is only in the case of Cuba that we have had this sort of interaction or visit to our airport facilities. Is that right?
That is correct.
And if I understand your testimony correctly, it's not just that they have visited. While those officials were here, they were provided a tour and an overview of our checkpoints, our K-9 program, screening equipment, air marshal training, covert testing, and checkpoint operations. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. And could you please share with us about any future engagements that are planned with officials from the Republic of Cuba that you're aware of?
We are not aware of any trips by the Cuban delegation to travel here to the United States airports. We do plan to send our inspectors to visit their airports and assess the carriers that have last point of departure service to the United States later this year.
And given Cuba's status as a state sponsor of terror, does it not concern you that we have actually shared with representatives of the Cuban government information about some of the most critical safeguards in place that secure our airport and air travel for Americans?
Ma'am, in the visit earlier this summer in May, they did not receive access. We did not provide them any written sensitive material. We call it sensitive security information, nor did they see SSI while they were here.
And so do you believe, you mentioned earlier, and I'd like to hear more about going forward efforts to make sure that if there are individuals from any country identified as a state sponsor of terror, but in particular Cuba, that you all intend to make effort to ensure we're notified as Congress or state or local leaders. Could you share with us a little bit more about that?
Yes, ma'am. We have put, following this event where we did not properly coordinate with Miami Airport, who's been an extraordinary partner with us, we put an administrative directive in place that requires formal notification to the U.S. airport authorities well in advance of a planned trip to ensure cooperation, coordination, and agreement that the visit will be beneficial.
And do you have any awareness of a new report from the Center for Strategic and International Studies that reveals that Cuba is building a new spy base near the city of Santiago de Cuba?
I'm not aware of that.
And then in November 2022, the FCC had a similar finding that Cuba was cooperating with China on furthering surveillance operations.
I'm not aware of that.
Do you have any concern that we should be revisiting any security agreements that are presently in place with the Republic of Cuba?
So TSA has a really narrow focus, and our job really is to ensure that the airports with last point of departure service, with direct service to the United States are secure, and that the 2 million passengers that fly back and forth every year, most of them Americans, are safe on those flights.
Mr. Chairman, I yield back.